So this happened. I think it happened out of a passive commitment to Essen. मैंने बस ऐसे ही बोल दिया था हाँ वुमेन बिकॉज ही वाज हैंडलिंग वुमेन्स क्रिकेट का मीडिया एंड आई जस्ट टोल्ड हिम हाँ मुझे वुमेन क्रिकेटर्स पे थोड़ी स्टोरी करनी है मैं इंडिया का तो करता ही था तो बोला कि पाकिस्तान का भी कर लेता हूँ एंड आई हैड फॉरगॉटन अबाउट इट सो वन डे ही रैंग मी अप ही इज लाइक आयुष तुम स्टोरी करने वाले थे ना करोगे एंड आई वाज लाइक ओ शिट आई वाज नॉट रेडी फॉर दिस बट लाइक ठीक है मैंने 5 क्रिकेटर्स के नाम ले लिए ऐसे फ्रॉम 5 डिफरेंट रीजन्स एंड आई गॉट अबाउट टॉकिंग टू देम. But before talking to them, I sort of tried to research on what their background was. But उनके क्रिकेट पे कुछ लिखा हुआ मिला नहीं मुझे. So I just went ahead and spoke to them. And when I did speak to them, I was sort of moved by their stories because मुझे लगा उनके stories would be similar to what the stories of Indian cricketers are. So, but it wasn't the case. And so there were two things. One about the stories itself, from what backgrounds they come, what battles they fight. It is different and unique from everything I'd ever heard before in the cricket world. And now in the cricket world, the thing is because so much of literature is dominated by men's cricket, women's cricket का वैसे ही कम है and जो कम था जो मैं पढ़ा भी था about Indian women cricketers, it was nothing like that. So one was to fill in this void of women's cricket literature in Pakistan, and second, just by the stories that were unique. I remember immediately after getting done with those calls, I called a person, and my plan was I would probably do this with him. Because I needed somebody from Pakistan, and because we had shared bylines in the past. So, but unfortunately, due to his commitments with the PCB, he couldn't join in. So I went ahead with the entire project, of course, with his help. Everything I needed from Pakistan, he was helping me out throughout that process. So basically, these were the two reasons. One, the stories itself. Secondly, the lack of absence of literature of Pakistan women's cricket.
ने थोड़ी सी डिस्टिंक्शन की बात की है अबाउट हाउ इंडिया और पाकिस्तान के बीच में ही आई मीन कॉमन परसेप्शन मेरा भी इनफैक्ट यही था कि काफी सिमिलर चैलेंजेस होंगे खवातीन के व्हेन इट कम्स टू एंटरिंग स्पोर्ट्स बट व्हाट वाज द रियली द डिस्टिंक्शन व्हिच यू वर एबल टू फाइंड
So firstly, Indian women's cricket ka literature in comparison to Pakistan is lot richer. There are two books on the history of Indian women's cricket. There are comic books. There is fiction. There is a entire movie. There are websites that run solely on women's cricket. Podcasts solely on women's cricket. मैं जिस शहर में रहता हूँ वहां पे मीटअप्स होते हैं ऑन वुमेन्स क्रिकेट के लोग मिलकर आई डोंट नो दे चिट चैट और व्हाटएवर दे डू बट so in all these stories I'd never, and even the players I had met interviewed, I'd never come across stories of players playing in secrecy from their parents, from their brothers, from their relatives, from their neighbors. I don't know neighbors का यहाँ पे influence आता भी कैसे है, but this is a very common thread. It begins with your house. Players are playing in secrecy, and these are the stories of people who have come out and played for Pakistan. Those who could never make it, I still don't know what their stories are. So it begins with that, and there is a lot of political background to Zia-ul Haq's regime and what it did to women in general in Pakistan with the Hudud ordinance, and just that they can't sing publicly, they can't dance publicly. I mean, it had its after effects for a really long time. There were death threats that happened when Pakistan tried to get into professional cricket. When in India it started, there was support. There was support from Sunil Gavaskar and all those guys who were there back then. So there's a great distinction in that terms of the battles that you're fighting, and it starts from home. बिकॉज इंडियन क्रिकेटर्स के आप किसी भी प्लेयर के जाके पूछो आपने कैसे क्रिकेट शुरू किया, सेम पेटेंट स्टोरी, हाँ मेरे डैड को इंटरेस्ट था, मेरे भाई को इंटरेस्ट था, तो मैं भी उनके साथ खेलती थी और खेल के क्लब में डाल दिया और आई वेंट ऑन टू वट एवर प्ले फॉर इंडिया. दीज आर एटलीस्ट of the players who made it to the Indian team. Maybe there are stories of people who could never make it, but those who at least made it always had that support from their family. And neighbors, तो I can't even think of brothers stopping a woman. भाई ने रोक दिया उसको चमाट पड़ेगा यहाँ पे. तो so all these things were different, were unique, and I hadn't come across, despite reading two histories on Indian women's cricket, stories like these. So it begins with that, yes, and then of course it just goes on and on. But yeah, this is the primary stoppage point.